Okay, so you want to own a cruise ship, a floating resort, thousands of passengers, hundreds of cabins, restaurants, bars, casinos, theaters, pools, shops, spas, water slides, and enough buffet food to make the ocean itself feel understocked. The guests pay before the ship leaves. They spend more money after boarding. And every few days you return to port and replace them with another group. Sounds simple. It is not simple, because a cruise ship can sell every cabin, leave the dock completely full, and still become a billion-dollar machine looking for enough cash to reach the next port. That is the first paradox. The vacation is prepaid. The fuel is not. In 2025, a record 37.2 million people took ocean cruises worldwide. More than 20 million sailed on cruises that typically embarked from the United States. This is no longer a niche vacation for retirees wearing identical shirts. Cruise ships are now floating cities competing with resorts, theme parks, casinos, hotels, and family vacations on land. And the largest companies are making extraordinary amounts of money. Royal Caribbean Group generated nearly $18 billion in revenue in 2025 and reported about $4.3 billion in net income. Carnival produced record annual revenue of roughly $26.6 billion. Those numbers make the industry look almost unfair. Then you look at what the companies had to build. As of early 2026, Royal Caribbean had approximately $16.2 billion of ships on order. Carnival still had billions in future ship commitments. Nothing says vacation business like signing construction contracts large enough to concern a national treasury. Before you sell one cabin, you need the ship. And a modern cruise ship is not a normal vessel. It is a hotel, power plant, water treatment facility, restaurant complex, theater, shopping center, casino, hospital, waste system, transportation network, and emergency response platform welded together and sent into international waters. A large new ship can cost well over $1 billion. The biggest classes push far beyond that. Construction takes years. Payments begin before the ship carries a single passenger. The company may finance the vessel with export credit facilities, bank loans, bonds, cash, or combinations of all four. The shipyard receives progress payments, the lender receives interest, the owner receives a delivery date and several years to imagine everything that could go wrong before then. The design decision is critical. How many cabins, how many balcony cabins, how many restaurants, how much casino space, how many family attractions, how many premium suites, how much crew space, how many lifeboats, how much fuel storage, how much room for machinery the passenger will never see, but will complain about immediately if it stops working. Every square foot has competition. A larger restaurant may increase onboard spending. More cabins increase ticket revenue. Larger crew areas may improve working conditions but do not sell directly. A bigger theater can attract guests but remains empty for much of the day. A water slide looks excellent in advertising and produces almost no direct ticket revenue once installed. The ship is designed around a financial question. Which spaces create enough demand, spending, or loyalty to justify the weight and construction cost? Weight matters because weight requires fuel. And fuel is one of the largest operating expenses in the business. The ship must move thousands of people, thousands of tons of steel, food, water, luggage, furniture, machinery, pools, and at least one passenger who packed as though the Caribbean had no clothing stores. Fuel prices change, routes change, weather changes, environmental rules change. The cruise line can improve efficiency, slow the ship, optimize routes, install new technology, and purchase fuel in advance. It still cannot negotiate with the ocean. Then you need crew. A large cruise ship may carry thousands of employees. Officers, engineers, housekeepers, cooks, servers, bartenders, performers, technicians, security, medical staff, retail workers, casino staff, laundry teams, maintenance crews, youth counselors, and somebody responsible for explaining why the towel animal does not come home with the guest. The ship operates 24 hours a day. Cabins must be cleaned. Restaurants must serve breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, second dinner, and the meal passengers call just looking at the buffet. Pools must be maintained. Shows must run. Machinery must be monitored. Public areas must be cleaned constantly. The crew lives on board for months at a time. The company provides food, accommodation, transport, training, uniforms, medical support, and complex scheduling across multiple countries and labor systems. The ship may look automated. The experience is intensely human. Now let us look at how the cruise actually makes money. The first layer is passenger tickets. The customer pays for a cabin and transportation between ports. Ticket prices vary by date, route, ship, cabin category, booking window, demand, and how urgently the company wants to fill the remaining rooms. An interior cabin may have no window, an ocean view cabin has a window, a balcony cabin has private outdoor space. A suite may include more room, better locations, exclusive lounges, priority access, and a bathroom large enough to turn around without submitting a request. The ship earns more when it sells premium cabins, but the cheapest cabins also matter. An empty interior cabin produces no onboard spending. A discounted guest may still buy drinks, excursions, internet, photos, specialty dining, and casino chips. This is why cruise lines care about occupancy. The passenger is not only buying the cabin, the ship is acquiring several days of access to the passenger's wallet. Carnival reported that passenger ticket revenue represented about 65% of its total 2025 revenue. That means roughly one-third came from onboard and other sources. The cabin starts the transaction, the ship finishes it. The second layer is drinks, alcohol, specialty coffee, soda, bottled water, drink packages. The passenger can buy one beverage at a time or purchase a package before sailing. The package creates prepaid revenue and encourages the guest to remain inside the cruise line's spending system. The customer calls it unlimited drinks. The company calls it revenue received before anyone has found the pool deck. The economics depend on usage. Some passengers buy the package and use it aggressively. Others discover on day 3 that drinking enough to get their money's worth has become a full-time position. Across thousands of guests, the company models expected consumption. The package is not designed around the thirstiest passenger on the ship. It is designed around the average. The third layer is specialty dining. The base fare may include the main dining room and buffet, but the ship can also offer steakhouses, sushi, Italian restaurants, chef experiences, seafood, tasting menus, and other premium venues. The same guest who selected a cruise because meals were included may pay extra to avoid the included meal. That is not a contradiction. That is segmentation. The buffet creates value. The premium restaurant creates choice and margin. The fourth layer is shore excursions. When the ship arrives in port, passengers can purchase tours through the cruise line. Beaches, snorkeling, city tours, private vehicles, zip lines, historical sites, wildlife encounters, activities involving helmets and a waiver written by someone who has seen things. The cruise line may operate some experiences directly or contract with local providers and retain a commission or markup. The passenger pays for convenience, coordination, and the reassurance that the ship has some relationship with the tour. Independent tours may be cheaper. The official tour sells reduced uncertainty. The fifth layer is the casino. Slot machines and table games generate revenue while the ship is in jurisdictions where gambling can operate legally. The casino creates entertainment and direct spending. It also produces valuable customer data. A high-value player may receive discounted cruises, free cabins, drinks, or future offers. The cabin becomes a casino acquisition cost with an ocean view. The sixth layer is internet. A cruise ship must connect to satellites or other maritime networks. The service is expensive to provide and valuable to passengers. Guests buy packages for messaging, browsing, streaming, and the urgent need to prove online that they are temporarily offline. Internet also supports onboard operations, payments, apps, entertainment, navigation, crew communication, and safety systems. The passenger sees Wi-Fi. The company sees infrastructure with a price menu. The seventh layer is retail. Jewelry, watches, cosmetics, clothing, souvenirs, duty-free products where applicable. The ship places stores along passenger routes because the customer has time, disposable income, and nowhere else to comparison shop until tomorrow. The eighth layer is photography. Professional photographers capture embarkation, dinners, formal nights, port arrivals, and the moment a family discovers how difficult it is to make 4 people look in the same direction. The photo costs little to display digitally. The memory has emotional value. That difference is margin. The ninth layer is spas, fitness, salons, medical aesthetics, classes, and premium experiences, massages, haircuts, treatments, private cabanas, behind-the-scenes tours, escape rooms, arcades, reserved seating. Some ships now contain enough optional purchases to turn the daily schedule into a small financial prospectus. And increasingly, The cruise line sells these products before departure. Royal Caribbean reported that nearly half of its onboard revenue in 2025 was booked before the cruise, and about 90% of those pre-cruise purchases came through digital channels. This is extremely powerful. The company sells the cabin. Then, before the guest arrives, it sells the drinks, dining, internet, excursions, photos, and experiences. By the time the passenger sees the ship, the vacation has already generated several layers of revenue. The customer is packing. The company is recognizing demand. Now we reach private islands and private destinations. A normal port earns money from the visit. Local tour companies, restaurants, shops, taxis, and attractions compete for passenger spending. A private destination changes the flow. The cruise line controls more of the experience. Food, drinks, cabanas, water attractions, retail, and premium access can remain inside the company's ecosystem. The ship has effectively brought its own port. The passenger experiences a beach day. The company experiences vertical integration with palm trees. This is why cruise companies are investing heavily in private destinations and beach clubs. The cruise does not end when the passenger walks off the ship. The business follows them ashore. So far, this sounds like an extraordinary machine. Now for the other side of the ledger. Port fees, fuel, food, payroll, commissions, maintenance, insurance, entertainment, waste management, technology, security, medical operations, dry docks, repairs, marketing, debt. A cruise ship earns only when it sails productively, but it cannot sail continuously forever. Ships require scheduled dry docks for inspections, maintenance, upgrades, painting, mechanical work, and regulatory compliance. During dry dock, the ship may generate no passenger revenue while paying for the work and losing available sailing days. The vessel is temporarily a hotel with no guests, no destination, and a very expensive appointment. Maintenance cannot be ignored. Saltwater attacks metal. Thousands of passengers use elevators, plumbing, furniture, carpets, kitchens, pools, and public spaces every week. The ship must remain visually fresh because the next group of passengers will compare it with photographs of a new ship launched 6 months ago. A 20-year-old ship can remain profitable. It cannot look like a 20-year-old ship that has accepted its fate. Then there is food waste. The ship must load enough supplies for thousands of people while predicting consumption across multiple restaurants and days at sea. Too little food creates a very public problem. Too much creates waste. The same issue applies to beverages, linens, medical supplies, spare parts, and almost everything else. A resort on land can receive another truck tomorrow. A ship hundreds of miles offshore has fewer delivery options. Inventory planning becomes maritime survival with spreadsheets. Weather is another risk. Hurricanes can change routes, storms can close ports, wind can prevent docking, political instability can remove destinations, war can close entire regions. A passenger buys an itinerary. The contract generally gives the cruise line flexibility to change it. The company sells specific destinations and operates a business that must remain flexible enough to avoid them. Then there are health events. Norovirus, respiratory illness, foodborne disease, medical emergencies. Cruise ships report certain outbreaks because large numbers of people share dining rooms, elevators, theaters, pools, and hallways. A small outbreak can damage a sailing. A major event can damage the brand. The ship must isolate passengers, sanitize spaces, provide medical support, communicate with authorities, and manage thousands of guests who suddenly become experts in epidemiology. Safety incidents are even more serious. Fire, power failure, grounding, mechanical breakdown, collision. A ship is a moving asset carrying thousands of people in an environment where outside assistance may be hours away. The company must spend enormous amounts of money so that nothing dramatic happens. That is the economics of safety. The most successful day is the day nobody makes a documentary about. Then there is debt. Cruise companies finance ships because the capital requirement is enormous. That works when demand is strong and vessels sail full. It becomes dangerous when ships stop. The pandemic revealed this more clearly than any event in the industry's history. Revenue collapsed, ships remained expensive. Cruise companies borrowed billions, sold ships, issued shares, reduced spending, and fought to preserve liquidity until operations returned. The passengers disappeared, the interest did not. And that brings us to Crystal Cruises and Genting Hong Kong. Crystal was a respected luxury cruise brand known for high service levels and loyal customers. Its parent company, Genting Hong Kong, also controlled other cruise brands and shipyard operations. The group had ambitious growth plans and significant financial commitments. Then the pandemic stopped cruise operations and damaged cash flow across the industry. The company faced mounting pressure from shipbuilding commitments, operating costs, debt, and a slow return to normal operations. In January 2022, Genting Hong Kong filed a petition to wind up the company and sought provisional liquidation. Crystal suspended operations. One of its ships, Crystal Symphony, was sailing toward Miami when a fuel supplier pursued approximately $4.6 million in unpaid bills. A federal arrest warrant was issued for the vessel. The ship changed course and went to the Bahamas instead. Imagine explaining that announcement to passengers. Your luxury voyage has been adjusted due to a developing relationship between maritime law and the fuel invoice. 2 Crystal ships were later detained in the Bahamas. The brand's ships and assets were sold. Crystal Symphony reportedly sold for around $25 million, while the newer Crystal Serenity sold for about $103 million. The brand was acquired by new owners and later relaunched. The ships returned. The original financial structure did not. This is the perfect cruise business lesson. The cabins existed, the restaurants existed, the passengers loved the brand, the ships were capable of sailing. The company ran out of financial room before it ran out of ocean. A cruise ship can be worth hundreds of millions of dollars and still be arrested over fuel. That is not a contradiction. That is liquidity. Now consider the optimistic version. You own a modern ship in a strong market. The cabins sell early. Premium categories command high prices. Guests pre-purchase drinks, dining, internet, excursions, and experiences. The ship sails at high occupancy. Fuel efficiency is strong. Routes are attractive. Ports are reliable. The loyalty program creates repeat customers. Private destinations retain more spending. The onboard experience generates excellent reviews. Debt is manageable. The ship becomes a floating revenue platform operating almost every day of the year. Now the realistic bad version. You order a ship during a boom. Construction costs rise. The currency moves against you. The ship arrives into weaker demand. Ticket prices fall. You discount cabins to fill them. Discounted guests spend less on board. Fuel rises. A key port increases fees. Weather disrupts the route. The ship requires an expensive repair. Interest payments continue. Another company launches a newer ship with more attractions. Your vessel is full, but the price was too low and the debt was too high. The pool is crowded. The balance sheet is taking on water. That is the cruise ship trap. A full ship does not guarantee a profitable sailing. A profitable sailing does not guarantee a healthy company. The ship earns in days. The debt lasts for decades. So does owning a cruise ship actually work? Yes. When the company understands that the ticket is only the beginning, the strongest cruise lines do not simply transport passengers between ports, they build controlled vacation ecosystems. The cabin creates access, the drinks create spending, the restaurants create upgrades, the excursions create commissions, the casino creates data. The private destination keeps the customer inside the system. The loyalty program brings them back. The ship is not really selling transportation. Most passengers could reach the destination faster by airplane. It is selling temporary membership in a floating world where the room, food, entertainment, transportation, and shopping all move together. The customer buys the feeling of escaping ordinary life. The company monetizes everything required to maintain the escape. And that is why the cruise fare can look surprisingly affordable. The ship does not need to earn everything before departure. It only needs to get the passenger on board. The ticket fills the cabin. The vacation fills the ledger.